Over 4 million children play baseball in the U.S. every year with the hopes of making it to the big leagues. Nick Petrie exceeded those expectations, but a series of injuries forced him to retire from the game long before his dream was over. Baseball is a numbers game. 90-foot paths marked by 15-inch bases. Batting averages, slugging percentages, and runs batted in display in bright lights and shine from the outfield. There's an island in the center, a holy ground of sorts, the ignition point for a battle that rages 60 feet 6 inches away at home plate every game. In 2015, Missouri State's Nick Petrie stood tall on the rubber. He demanded the attention of giants. The 2012 Collegiate Baseball Player of the Year had been picked by the St. Louis Cardinals in the 9th round of the 2013 draft. He climbed his way back to Hammons Field to play for the Springfield Cardinals. His right-handed delivery had brought him back home, but with every pitch and every waning inning, his love for competition slowly gave way to the numbers. His baseball career eliminated by another statistic.
I knew the pitch. It was in a second inning of a game. I threw. I didn't know what was wrong with it at the time, but I knew there was something wrong with it, and walked back in, and by the time I walked back in, I really couldn't straighten my arms.
Nick Petrie's freshman season at Missouri State was spent in rehab.
One pitch, and there it was.
Recovering from Tommy John surgery.
I never really had any arm problems, so initially it was like, this is kind of weird, you know, maybe it's just like a forearm thing, whatever, but obviously that wasn't the case.
The UCL is a ligament in the elbow that connects the humerus bone to the ulna bone in the forearm. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like this rubber band. Every time a pitcher throws a baseball, the ligament or rubber band stretches a little bit. You can imagine over the course of a season or a career that the rubber band might tear or just completely snap, and that's what requires surgery. Repairing the ulnar collateral ligament in the elbow was a surgery first performed on Major League pitcher Tommy John by Dr. Frank Jobe back in 1974. Initially, it was a surgery reserved for the professional elite, but in recent years has spread like an epidemic, reaching even the youngest of athletes. In a study done at the American Sports Medicine Institute in Birmingham, Alabama, the surgery increased over 6-fold among their medical staff at the turn of the century. According to the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine, the surgery has increased over 9% each year since then, and from the years 2007 to 2011, over 56% of its patients were teens between the ages of 15 and 19 years old.
It was just a long, drawn-out process, and it was physically demanding as well as very, very mentally demanding as well. It was definitely the first time I religiously did arm care.
The ASMI reports that more than 80% of athletes return to their original level of play post-surgery, and Nick Petrie was no exception.
85 to 88-ish, and then my freshman year, right after that surgery, first outing, I was 89, 90.
He went on to become the Valley Freshman of the Year in 2011, and the first in program history to become the National Player of the Year in 2012. The icing on the cake, though, was being drafted by his hometown team.
It was a dream come true.
But his time wearing red and white was short-lived.
I got an MRI, injuries happen.
Petrie was forced to retire at the age of 25.
Any day could end.
With his second UCL tear. And Nick Petrie attended Missouri State, where he was named the National Player of the Year in 2012. He was then drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals, but was forced to retire at the age of 25 after suffering his second UCL tear.
My parents told me I picked up a base when I was 2 years old and started chucking it. My dad always joked with me. He was always just telling me, hey, I just want to get you to college so you get a scholarship to pay your college. I always joked back, I didn't want to just finish there. I wanted to keep going.
After being named Collegiate Baseball's 2012 National Player of the Year from Missouri State, Nick Petrie accomplished his dream, being drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals.
I was very excited. I got an opportunity to continue to play baseball, and I'm very thankful.
At 25, he had his whole career ahead of him. That career ended after the 2015 season when doctors told him the news.
It wasn't a one pitch. It was kind of throughout the year, I'm guessing. I got an MRI. It's kind of heartbreaking to hear that information, but once again, injuries happen.
Petrie had torn his UCL, the ulnar collateral ligament, in his right arm. Again, His Major League Baseball playing days were over.
Play every day like, it's going to be your last, because you don't know when your last one is going to be.
Petrie's diagnosis is becoming more and more of a reality for baseball players of all ages across the nation. Dr. Chris Miller is an orthopedic surgeon at Cox Health and studied under Dr. Frank Jobe, who pioneered the surgery back in 1974.
Dr. Jobe told me that every pitcher's arm has a limited number or a finite number of pitches that they're going to have before the ligament tears.
In the last 20 years, Tommy John surgery has increased in high school athletes over 30%, according to the American Sports Medicine Institute. A study published in the American Journal of Sports Medicine took it a step further and noticed that children as young as 13 years old are now undergoing the surgery. Dr. Niro Jayanthi leads a tennis medicine program at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and is regarded as one of the leading experts in youth sports injuries.
In my mind, training-related injuries they're almost all preventable, right? Like if you're doing a specific excess volume and your training load is more than you need to be successful, you get hurt.
In 2015, Jayanthi released findings regarding overuse injuries, such as elbow and shoulder injuries in baseball players. Over 1,200 athletes were recruited, and a study found a direct link between the age of the athlete and the number of hours spent in organized sports. Athletes that play more hours per week than their age in years were at an increased risk for a serious overuse injury. These findings corresponded with a previous 10-year study done by Jayanthi, finding that baseball pitchers that threw more than 100 innings per year were 3.5 times more likely to be injured. In another study published by the American Sports Medicine Institute, players that pitched more than 8 months of the year were 5 times more at risk. The study also found that pitching despite arm fatigue increased their injury chances by 36 times. David, Emily Myers grew up like a lot of girls in the Ozarks. She would often find herself at SMS games wishing to be more like Jackie Stiles. She would eventually live out her dream, but her career ended suddenly before the final buzzer.
I seriously felt like a piece of me was gone. Like for so long, that's been my life. Yeah, like school's important to me, my relationships are really important to me, but through it all, I've had this sport. It's kind of like a relationship, that love-hate relationship.
Emily Myers never imagined that basketball would break her heart.
A lot of tears came from the sport.
You could say it was love at first sight.
Forever, going to, at the time, like the SMS games with my dad and watching Jackie Stiles play. I'm like, I want to do that someday. It was always a dream. And being polite and kind of shy off the court, I could step on the court and just be someone completely different. It was never even a question that I was somehow going to get there.
But sitting on the bench at Evangel University that fateful day, Emily lived her worst nightmare, a season-ending ACL tear.
I didn't know what the feeling was. It scared me to death. I honestly can't tell you how painful it was, but it was just really scary because I was like, that shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't have felt that way. They were like, if you want to play again, we're going to have surgery really soon.
Lady Crusader basketball fans know her as Emily Akins, and her name was no secret either. Number 22 led the Heart of America Conference in scoring as a junior. She was also the third leading scorer in NAIA Division I up until her injury.
I mean, these gals are getting to be very competitive, very athletic.
Dr. Chris Miller is an orthopedic surgeon with Cox Health in Springfield.
Most commonly, we'll either take the central third of the patellar tendon or the 2 hamstring tendons on the inside of the knee, and again replace that torn ligament with a tendon graft.
The surgery itself typically takes under 2 hours, but it's followed by 6 months of rehab.
Because it takes that long for the body to turn that tendon into a ligament.
Before she knew it, the Evangel guard was able to lace up her shoes, throw on her jersey, and walk back on the court for her senior year.
It was a C of O game here. One of the most biggest rivalries. I was so excited for it. I've been playing for a little bit. I mean, the gym was packed. It's about as packed as an Evangel girls basketball game could be. It was fun. I was feeling it. So it's one of those games you just really want to win. I remember dribbling to the paint, and the girl cut me off, and so I went to do a spin move. I just froze and dropped to the ground. And I don't even know what it felt like. But I knew right then that I tore it again. I knew exactly what that feeling was. And everything kind of disappeared, and I was just angry.
According to Summit Rehab, there are 250,000 ACL injuries in the U.S. every year, costing more than $2 billion. In women's high school basketball, the Center for Injury Research and Policy reported over 14,000 knee injuries in the 2014-15 school year, the leading cause for high school sports-related surgeries.
I think we're giving them certainly a much, much better knee than they would have without the surgery, but we're certainly not giving them back the knee that God gave them.
In the Show Me State, the Missouri State High School Athletics Association reports that females rupture their ACL 3 times as much as males, a statistic that Emily Myers fell victim to, not once, but twice.
It's the hardest thing I've gone through, but I know it's not the hardest thing I will go through. So as weird as it sounds, I'm thankful for it because it makes me realize that basketball has taught me so much more than just the hard work and the criticism and the discipline that I thought it had, but also learning to deal with complete just devastation. And I wouldn't trade that.
When Emily Myers tore her ACL for the second time, it not only ended her season, but also her career. These injuries have an immediate impact on athletes, but research has shown that their effects linger on much longer.
Life goes on, and it's just nice because I know that God has this plan that goes beyond even now, but even right now, in this moment, if this is what God had for me, like, it's perfect.
Emily Myers wasn't always content with the plans God had for her.
Like screaming and just like slamming the floor.
Myers suffered her second ACL tear in 2 years while playing basketball for Evangel University.
Like the first time I was upset and just crying. The second time I was mad. Are you kidding me? This is not happening right now.
This time her injury not only ended her season, but also her career.
For an ACL injury, we've got a surgery to correct it. The problem with the surgery is, yes, you have it reconstructed, but you're still 10 times more likely to have another, either to suffer an injury to the same knee, so you tear the graft, or to the opposite side. You know, everyone talks about sport being learning life lessons, and I think there has to be some responsibility as well to take care of them more than just teaching life lessons and winning games.
Dr. Mark Norcross is a researcher in the College of Public Health and Human Services at Oregon State University.
So here we've got, a young population that is engaged in physical activity, is doing that because they likely enjoy it, but now this injury has the potential to cause them to be inactive later in life.
Norcross studies lower extremity prevention programs for high school athletes. According to Norcross and his colleagues, more than 1.7 million students participated in high school soccer and basketball programs during the 2013 and 14 school year, and about 20% of them required medical attention for a lower extremity injury. In women's basketball, the high school sports-related injury surveillance study reported that knee and ankle injuries accounted for 46% of injuries the following year.
We know once someone has one ankle sprain, they're 90% chance they're going to have recurrent ankle sprain, and then those individuals, 15 years, are going to have early onset osteoarthritis.
The answer, according to Dr. Norcross, is intervention prevention programming.
Injury will always be an inherent part of sport. It's going to be there. All I think we are looking to do, and we're trying to do, like anything else, is make it safer.
Well, this week is all about football and concussions. Our Daniel Shedd joins us now with much more. Daniel.
Jen, it wasn't until 2011 that the state of Missouri passed legislation requiring an annual youth sports brain injury report. At the top of the list every year is the game of football, responsible for nearly 46% of brain injuries.
Because I think this game's a great game and can offer so many things to so many people, but no sport is ever worth the risk of having long-term issues, especially when you're talking about things like CTE and concussions.
The American Academy of Neurology reported in April this year that 40% of retired NFL players showed signs of having a traumatic brain injury. Even Super Bowl MVP Kurt Warner has reservations about the game he loves.
It's a tough thing because we know it's a violent sport and we know that injuries are going to occur. But I do like the moves that are being made everywhere from Pop Warner all the way up to the NFL levels.
Let's go. Helmets on.
Bill Voris is one of the many high school coaches in the Ozarks leading the charge. He's the head coach at Fair Grove.
You know, I think everybody's hyper aware right now, and everyone wants to, you got to err on the side of caution. I think it's like a pendulum. It's like anything else. It goes from one end to the other, and probably the reality is probably somewhere in the middle.
An estimated 300,000 sports-related brain injuries occur in the United States every year, according to the Journal of Athletic Training. At that rate, sports come in as the second leading cause of brain injuries to young adults, right behind motor vehicle accidents.
Those seasons go so fast.
Rich Rehagen is the head football coach in Nixa.
I've seen players get hurt and, they'll miss half a year, and, they put in a lot of work to get into those seasons, and I just hate to see it taken away when an injury does happen.
In the 2014-15 school year, the Missouri State High School Athletics Association reported over 2,800 head injuries, costing students to miss over 34,000 days of competition and over 3,500 days of missed classes. Football ranked at the top of the list, representing over 46%. Since 2011 in the Show Me State, football has caused between 1,300 and 1,500 head injuries every year.
You have to keep them out for 24 hours, have them evaluated by a doctor or physician before he can return to play.
Harvey Richards is the Associate Executive Director for MSHA.
We're probably in the forefront of a lot of the states. We rank probably in the top 10 out of 50 states that are doing everything that you should have in place.
In 2011, MSHA was a big part in helping pass Missouri House Bill 300, which established the Youth Sports Brain Injury Prevention Act. The new law required every school district to distribute concussion information annually to each athlete and their family. This made Missouri one of the only states in the country to publish an annual brain injury report.
We're trying to find out what's really going on out there.
Richards and MSHA are currently in the middle of a 2-year study focused on reducing contact during football practices in hopes to curb these numbers even further, a step that the Journal of Athletic Training backs, stating that tackling and being tackled are responsible for close to 70% of football concussions.
You're really smart with your players where you are in a season. You really reduce down a lot of what you're doing the later in the year as you go to keep your team healthy.
The goal is to get teams to have less than 90 minutes of contact per week, because less time injured means more time on the playing field.
The biggest thing for kids, they just want to be involved in something. They want to be involved in something they can contribute to. You got 22 starters on offense or defense, and you got special teams. Kids have a chance to get out there and contribute to their school, their community.
And tonight we turn our attention to the people in the stands.
Jen, in the state of Missouri last year, football caused 1,332 brain injuries. Football parents are on the receiving end of these statistics, and their concern is mirrored even at the highest level. 200 kids swarmed the turf for Camp DGB, and Doriel Green Beckham smiled proudly. The 40th overall pick of the 2015 NFL Draft overlooked Hillcrest Shoemate Stadium with a different perspective.
For the games, I always like have them out on the field. Just let them be able to experience, get the look of everything.
DGB wore the Hornets jersey proudly 4 years ago. This time, he was back in Springfield, not only as an athlete, but also as a father.
Especially my own son.
Balancing the ball with the safety of his boy.
It scares me to know that my son's hopefully is going to have to go through some of those experiences.
It makes camps like this personal for the Tennessee Titan. Green Beckham teamed up with players from Missouri State and around the Ozarks to teach Springfield kids the fundamentals.
Guys got to protect themselves, and I know in the NFL, our sport is the hardest sport to really play.
I think the hardest thing is just that when you put on a helmet as a player, again, I'm very much aware of what I'm going through, and I'm very much aware of the decisions I will make in those situations.
Kurt Warner spent 12 years in the NFL with the Rams, Giants, and Cardinals.
Anytime anything is outside of you and you put on a parent hat, you're always trying to protect your kids from everything, but the bottom line is you can't do it without their help.
Well, the pendulum has swung. The pendulum was you got your bell rung, you got dinged a little bit. It's funny, to where it's like, oh my goodness, I have a concussion. Am I going to be okay?
Jim Rayner is the administrative director for Mercy Sports Medicine in Springfield.
The reality is that concussions have been a part of athletics for quite some time. We just have a better understanding of recognition.
In 2012, the NFL launched their Heads Up football program in hopes of making the sport safer for youth. The program places player safety at the forefront by focusing on proper form taught by certified coaches. Research from the Daedalus Center for Sports Injury Research and Prevention has shown that the program works. In a 2014 study, there was a 76% reduction in injuries in leagues that participated in the Heads Up program. Dr. Shannon Woods leads athletic training at Cox Health.
In the last 20 years, there has been a huge explosion in the amount of research in concussion.
Now, Dr. Woods at Cox Health recommends that parents and coaches download an app on their smartphone. I found this concussion recognition and response app. They're free to download, and if you go into the app, it allows you to diagnose an incident, look at home symptom monitoring, and also return to play guidelines for when your athlete is safe to return to the field.
I think the state of football is in the best place that it's ever been because we're more aware of what's going on. We're more conscious of those things. We're looking out for those things much more than we ever have in the future.
Jen and David, 159 schools in Missouri play year-round without the presence of athletic trainers. 79 schools in the Show Me State hosted varsity football games last year without an ambulance.
Being prepared for the worst, hoping for the best.
Will someone call 911, please?
In the world of emergency medicine, seconds are vital.
1, 2, 3.
The survival rates dramatically increase if you can apply that within 2 minutes.
EMS is here.
Jim Rayner supervises the Mercy Sports Medicine program.
So this is going into our 25th year.
Which services Springfield Public Schools at their athletic contests.
It's very, very well coordinated from the athletic trainer to the EMS to the emergency department.
Every summer, Mercy and Cox
My neck hurts. Your neck hurts? All right.
train for the worst of athletic injuries. This level of care on the gridiron may seem standard for schools here in the Ozarks, but statewide statistics prove that it's more of a luxury. According to MSHA's 2014 and 15 Youth Sports Brain Injury Report, 124 high schools in the Show Me State reported having ambulances at all levels of competition. 37% had ambulances at varsity games only, and 22% of schools in Missouri reported not having ambulances at any level of football competition.
I don't think we can actually put a price tag on someone's health, well-being, and life if we don't attempt to provide as much care and provision as possible.
MSHA also reported in 2015 that only 27% of schools in Missouri have full-time trainers at their games and practices. 30% of the schools responding to the annual survey don't have trainers at all and rely upon the coaches and the administration to provide on-site medical treatment. In 2014, MSHA changed its bylaws, requiring all athletic coaches to be first aid and CPR certified.
In the state of Missouri, everyone must be certified.
Harvey Richards is the Associate Executive Director with MSHA.
I think all of us, every state would like to see it be 100%, but there's a lot of things that have to be done before that happens. We still don't have the finances for that to occur, but I would love to see there be some medical profession on every practice and every contest for every high school sport.
Jen and David, we all remember going through fire drills as a kid at school. Emergency action plans serve the same purpose for athletic departments. They're a well thought out plan for the unthinkable. But a recent survey shows that 10% of schools in Missouri don't have one in place.
When an emergency does arise, that brings on heightened emotion, adrenaline starts going, and it's not really a situation where you're able to think clearly in the moment.
Whether in the classroom or on the court, Tyler Overstreet is at the front lines of keeping students safe.
You know, there's an old saying, prior preparation prevents poor performance, and you know, always having a plan and then even having a backup plan.
As the principal of Republic High School, his administration relies on an emergency action plan.
Basically a procedure and protocol for any facility that you have on campus.
Everyone is familiar with a fire drill, but these EAPs also translate directly into athletics.
When you look at it, football is such a contact sport. There's a lot of different injuries that can take place.
Now, an emergency action plan includes the basics, like who's taking care of an injured athlete on the football field, but it also includes things that might go unnoticed, like who's unlocking the double-wide gate so an ambulance can access the field. Cox Health is the service provider for the Republic School District.
So time is the most important factor, just like it is in all of the world.
And Dr. Shannon Woods leads the Cox Health Sports Medicine Program.
Every school district is different and their needs are different, and so we try and adapt what we're doing to their facilities, because that's going to make a difference in what you do. Not every school district is laid out exactly the same. They may not have the same supplies, and so we need to make sure that we try and bring everybody to a par level where everybody is equal.
The Missouri State High School Athletics Association states that all schools should have a written and rehearsed emergency plan, but 10% of schools responding to their 2015 survey report that their school district does not have a plan in place.
I would have to say that 100% of our schools have an emergency action plan in place, on paper somewhere. It's whether they're actively using it or not.
Harvey Richards is the Associate Executive Director with MISHA.
One of your practices should be the greatest X's and O's, should be a practice of what you do with your emergency action plan. You know, a simulated accident, something has to occur, what are you going to do, what's your team going to do, and everything else.
Every school should have an emergency action plan.
Jim Rayner is the director of Mercy Sports Medicine.
What if there isn't a lane for the emergency transport vehicles to access the playing venue? What happens if the gate that was supposed to be open is locked? Those are the things that the emergency action plan needs to address, and they need to be addressed in a simplified manner, comprehensive but simplified manner, that anyone can be a participant.
MISHA has guidelines for an emergency action plan posted on its website. It should include personnel responsibilities in case of an emergency, lines of communication between the school, athletes, and emergency personnel, equipment such as AEDs, as well as information about the athletes and venues where the sports are being played. 70% of children leave organized sports before their 13th birthday. As society surrounds kids with pressure to perform, the need for supportive parents focused on the essence of athletics have never been more important.
I mean, sports bring, obviously, the obvious benefits physically, socially, emotionally, even spiritually, some would say.
The University of Michigan released a study in April stating 55% of parents believe that their kids' mental and emotional health is worse than their own childhood. Many times, sports fill the void.
I think this is emblematic of a cultural issue that's been kind of taking root for decades now.
Dr. Paul Tomlinson's a psychologist with Borough Behavioral Health in Springfield.
And there are definitely some downsides to overemphasis on sports above all things. Sports is about play. They're not professionals yet.
As a result, more than 3.5 million kids under the age of 14 are treated for sports-related injuries each year. 70% of children leave organized sports altogether before they reach their teens.
Anything you do to a child or to any human being to push them past their limits of emotional coping is going to increase the likelihood that they're going to get injured or hurt in some way.
We sometimes take this to a new level.
Dr. Shannon Woods leads the sports medicine program at Cox Health.
Those ideas get lost by the individuals, by the kids, by the parents, by the coaches, and it becomes about winning. It becomes about how can I make it to the pros, how can I make it to get a college scholarship, and all of those other great things that make sports great for humanity get lost. Parents obviously are the role models for their children, and setting forth that good sense that this is about fun, this is about participating in something bigger than yourself in this team setting, learning to cooperate with other individuals, learning to make goals and reach goals. That's what I like to see from parents.
I think the most important point here is for parents to be clued into the strengths of their child and make sure that they're doing things that play to those strengths and that they're allowed to develop and maximize those strengths. It's really all about letting the child find their own path within the loving guidance of the parents' watchful eye.
And Dr. Tomlinson admits that parenting is the hardest job on earth, but he stresses that it can be done successfully with communication.